Hey, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Right now, you feel the weight of your body pressing against the bed and the solidity of the floor beneath the room. It is a sensation of absolute certainty, a feeling that the world is hard, physical, and continuous. But physics tells us that this sensation is a lie. If we were to look at your body through a microscope powerful enough to see the true architecture of reality, the solid lines of your skin would dissolve into a vibrating lattice of light and vast, uncomfortable darkness. Most people think of themselves as physical objects occupying space like water in a glass. But if we were to take every human being on Earth, all 8 billion of us, and remove the empty space that exists inside our atoms, the entire human population would fit inside the volume of a single sugar cube. It is a staggering contradiction. We feel heavy, yet we are technically ghosts, composed almost entirely of a void that is neither empty nor full. This leads us to a question that has haunted physicists since the early 20th century. If we are 99.999% empty space, why do we not simply fall through the floor? Why does your hand not pass through the table like a shadow passing through glass? Tonight, we answer that question. We will explore the illusion of solidity, traveling from the magnetic fields that cradle you as you sleep, down to the quantum cathedral of the nucleus, and finally into the silence that sits at the center of everything. By the end of this journey, you will understand that the emptiness inside you is not nothingness, but the canvas upon which the entire universe is painted. That sensation of pressure on your back, the feeling of the sheets against your skin, and the comfort of the pillow supporting your head are all the result of a touch that never actually happens. To understand this, we must first look at the invisible barriers that define the boundaries of your existence. We live our lives convinced that we are constantly interacting with the world, brushing against surfaces, holding objects, and walking on solid ground. But the laws of electromagnetism suggest that you have never truly touched anything in your entire life. When you press your hand against a table, or when your body rests against the mattress, what you interpret as contact is actually a force of repulsion. Every atom in your body is wrapped in a cloud of electrons, negatively charged particles that buzz around the nucleus, like a swarm of protective insects. The atoms in your bed are wrapped in the same negative clouds, and just as two magnets will push each other away when you try to force their matching poles together, the electrons in your body and the electrons in the bed repel one another with tremendous force. This electromagnetic interaction creates a microscopic gap, a tiny chasm of space that can never be crossed. You are technically levitating in every moment of your life. Whether you are standing, sitting, or sleeping, you are held in a gentle electromagnetic suspension, hovering nanometers above the rough edges of the world. The universe does not allow its matter to touch. It only allows it to interact across this gap. It is a comforting thought. It means that even when you feel the weight of the world pressing down on you, there is always a cushion of energy, a fundamental barrier that keeps you safe from the harshness of true contact. The heaviness you feel right now is simply the electromagnetic force of the earth pushing back against you, a silent, invisible cradle that holds you in place. Our primitive eyes and our nervous systems are not designed to perceive this gap. Evolution has no use for quantum mechanics. It only cares about survival. And so your brain takes the data from this repulsive force, the resistance of the fields pushing against each other, and translates it into a language you can understand. It calls this resistance solid. It calls the variation in that resistance texture. When you run your fingers over a smooth sheet or a rough blanket, you are not feeling the material itself. You are feeling a map of energy densities, a topography of repulsive forces that your brain weaves into the illusion of a physical surface. This is why the world feels so permanent. We are biological machines designed to ignore the void. If we could perceive the true nature of things, the room around you would look less like a collection of furniture and more like a ghostly fog, distinct islands of energy floating in a sea of silence. But because we are trapped in our macroscopic perspective, we see walls, we see floors, and we see bodies. We see a continuity that does not exist. But this illusion serves a purpose. It allows us to navigate a universe that is mostly empty without succumbing to the vertigo of the void. It gives us a sense of place, yet knowing the truth offers a different kind of comfort. It reminds us that we are not static lumps of clay, but dynamic systems of energy held together by forces that are as ancient as the stars. You are a data point in a vast, complex field, defined not by the hard shell of your skin, but by the energetic interactions that keep you suspended in this moment of rest. This repulsion is powerful, but it is not infinite. It requires a specific architecture to maintain. If we look deeper past the skin and past the cells, we arrive at the source of this force, the atom itself. It is here, in the architecture of the atom, that the true scale of our emptiness begins to reveal itself. We often see diagrams of atoms in textbooks, a cluster of balls in the center with rings orbiting around them, like a miniature solar system. But these diagrams are misleading. They are drawn to fit on a page, compressing the vast distances that actually exist within you. If we were to build a scale model of a single atom, expanding the nucleus to the size of a marble and placing it on the 50-yard line of a football stadium, the electrons would be tiny gnats buzzing in the highest seats of the bleachers. Everything in between the field, the rows of seats, the air inside the stadium, would be empty. This is the interior of your own hand. This is the structure of the air you are breathing. Imagine walking through that stadium. The air is still. The distances are vast. You could walk for miles in the darkness of your own body without ever hitting a solid object. This is why the neutrino, a ghost-like particle produced by the sun, can pass through the entire Earth without hitting a single atom. To a neutrino, the Earth is not a rock, it is a fog. And you, sleeping in your bed, are just a mist of probability, a cloud of energy that allows the cosmos to flow right through, leaving no trace, offering no resistance. It is strange to think that the solidity we rely on is generated by such a sparse framework. We are like cathedrals made of silence, defined more by the space inside us than by the walls that hold us up. But this space is not a defect. It is a necessity. Without this vast distance between the nucleus and the electrons, the intricate dance of chemistry could not happen. There would be no room for bonds to form, no space for energy to be exchanged, no possibility for life to exist. The hollowness of the atom is the very thing that allows it to build the complexity of a human being. So as you lie there, feeling the phantom touch of the bed, remember that you are a marvel of suspension. You are a lattice of light and force, floating in the dark, protected by the laws of physics from ever truly colliding with the world. You are safe in your own personal force field, drifting through a universe that is far softer and far more spacious. And in this vastness, there is room to breathe. There is room to let go of the heaviness of the day, knowing that the weight you carry is just energy, and energy can always be released back into the field. Strategy block, audience phrases used, the void, data point, sleepy science, quiet chaos, viral hooks, cosmic vertigo, the stadium scale, intellectual validation, Rutherford paradox, production script. To truly understand this sensation of levitation, we must look past the surface of the skin and enter the architecture of the atom itself. For centuries, we believed that matter was solid, like a stack of bricks or a pile of sand, packed tightly together to create the weight of the world. But we know now that this solidity is a persistent illusion, a trick of the light played by the electromagnetic forces we just described. If we were to shrink ourselves down, passing through the protective barrier of the electron shells, we would not find a dense, cluttered room. We would find a cathedral of silence. This realization began with a simple experiment in 1911, when the physicist Ernest Rutherford fired tiny energetic particles at a thin sheet of gold foil. He expected these particles to bounce back like tennis balls hitting a concrete wall. But instead, almost all of them passed straight through the gold, as if the metal wasn't even there. It was a moment that shook the foundations of physics, revealing that the gold foil, and by extension your hand, your bed, and the earth beneath you was not a solid wall, but a ghost-like mist. To visualize this scale, we must use a metaphor that helps astronomers understand the vastness of the cosmos, but applied to the microscopic world. Imagine that a single atom in your body is enlarged to the size of a professional football stadium. You are standing on the perfectly cut grass of the playing field, looking up at the towering stands that rise on all sides, waiting for the game to begin. In this model, the nucleus of the atom, the part that contains almost all of its mass, would be a single glass marble sitting on the 50-yard line. It is tiny, dense, and heavy, resting quietly in the center of this immense arena. And where are the electrons? They are not on the field with you. They are not even in the lower seats. In our stadium-sized atom, the electrons would be tiny gnats, buzzing silently in the very highest row of the nosebleed section, drifting near the stadium lights. Everything in between, the entire playing field, the rows of empty seats, the air that fills the dome, is the void. It is empty space. If you were to walk from the marble in the center to the gnats in the upper deck, you would pass through miles of absolute nothingness. There is no air to breathe here, no light to see, just a vast, silent distance that separates the heart of the atom from its outer edge. This is the true structure of your body. You are not a solid object. You are a collection of trillions of these stadiums, each one consisting almost entirely of empty space, with only a few tiny specks of matter floating in the quiet chaos. If we were to remove this empty space from every human being on Earth, collapsing the stadiums down so that the gnats touched the marbles, the entire human population, all 8 billion of us, would fit inside the volume of a single sugar cube. It is a humbling thought, a reminder that what we perceive as me is mostly a geometric arrangement of vacuum. Yet this emptiness is not barren. As you stand on the field of that imaginary stadium, feeling the vast distances between the particles, you may notice that the space feels charged. It is not waiting to be filled. It is already full of potential. But if the stadium is effectively empty, why don't we fall through the floor? Why does the marble not drift away from the gnats? The answer lies in what fills that void. It is not empty air, but a storm of probability, a cloud of energy that defies our intuition and turns the vacuum into a rigid, unyielding shape. To understand this, we must leave the quiet of the stadium and step into the cloud. Strategy block, audience phrases used, forbidden physics, data point, sleepy science, the void, comforting darkness, viral hooks, intellectual validation, debunking the Bohr model, visualizing the invisible orbitals, production script, chapter 3. The cloud of possibility. This mist is not a physical substance like steam rising from a kettle, nor is it a collection of dust motes floating in a sunbeam. It is a cloud of pure mathematical possibility. To understand how a single particle can fill the vast, silent cathedral of the atom, we must let go of the images we learned in school. For generations, we have been taught to visualize the atom as a microscopic solar system, with the nucleus acting as a tiny sun and the electrons orbiting like planets on a predictable circular track. It is a neat, orderly picture. It feels safe, but this image is a useful fiction. In the strange reality of the quantum world, the electron does not trace a line through space. It does not have a specific location until it interacts with something else. Instead, it exists as a standing wave, a vibration that fills the emptiness of the stadium all at once, creating a three-dimensional shape that is both there and not there. Imagine, instead of a planet tracing a thin orbit, a fog of energy that thickens and thins, creating a shell around the nucleus. This is the electron cloud. It is a region where the particle is likely to be found, but never definitely located. It is a ghost that haunts the entire stadium simultaneously. This concept helps astronomers and physicists understand why atoms are mostly empty space, yet still feel solid to the touch. The electron is not a tiny marble whizzing around. It is a smeared-out field of probability that occupies the volume of the atom through sheer ubiquity. Physicists call these ghostly shapes orbitals. In the simplest atoms like hydrogen, this cloud forms a perfect sphere, a protective bubble of energy shielding the nucleus. But as we move to more complex elements, the carbon in your skin, the iron in your blood, these clouds take on strange, beautiful geometries. You might imagine them blooming like invisible flowers from the center of the pitch, some shaped like dumbbells, others like clover leaves, their petals made of nothing but the likelihood of finding a particle. They pulse and shimmer in the dark, interlocking with the clouds of neighboring atoms to build the structure of the visible world. This is the paradox of your own existence. You are made of particles that are, strictly speaking, nowhere in particular. You are a collection of probability waves crashing against each other, creating the sensation of a boundary. It is a form of forbidden physics to our intuitive minds, the idea that something can be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Yet this uncertainty is the very foundation of stability. Without this fuzziness, the electrons would spiral into the nucleus, and all matter would collapse in a flash of light. The fuzziness, the lack of definition, is what keeps the atom inflated. It is what gives you size. So when you look at your hand resting on the bed, you are not seeing a solid wall of matter. You are seeing the average result of trillions of quantum dice rolls, a stable image emerging from a chaotic storm of data points. The emptiness inside you is not a void of nothingness. It is a canvas of potential, a space required for the electrons to dance their strange wave-like dance. But while this cloud gives us shape, it does not give us weight. A cloud, after all, is light. If the electron is just a ghost, and the nucleus is a tiny marble in the center of a stadium, where does the heaviness of your body come from? Why do you press down into the mattress? The answer is not in the particles themselves, but in the frantic energy that binds them together. To find the mass of a human being, we must look at the invisible motion trapped within the silence. Strategy block, audience phrases used, trapped motion, the void, sleepy science, primitive eyes, viral hooks, the illusion of materiality, the weight of energy, production script, chapter 4, the weight of light. We tend to think of our bodies as biological statues, made of solid clay or carved from the heavy stone of the earth. We feel the pull of gravity anchoring us to the bed, and our primitive eyes tell us that this weight comes from the sheer amount of stuff we are made of. But this is perhaps the greatest illusion of all. If we were to look strictly at the particles that compose you, the quarks inside the protons, and the electrons buzzing in the distance, we would find that they possess almost no mass at all. This leads us to a strange and beautiful realization. You are not heavy because you are filled with matter. You are heavy because you are filled with motion. To understand this, we must look at the cathedral of the nucleus again, specifically at the 3 tiny points of geometry dancing inside the proton, known as quarks. These particles are incredibly light, weighing almost nothing on their own. If you were to add up the mass of the 3 quarks that make up a proton, they would account for only 1% of the proton's total weight. The other 99% of your mass seems to appear out of nowhere. It appears from the silence between them. This is where the most famous equation in history, energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, quietly governs your sleep. It tells us that energy and mass are the same thing, just in different forms. Inside the nucleus, those tiny quarks are moving at speeds close to the speed of light, but they are held together by the strong nuclear force, a glue so powerful that it acts like a rubber band. The harder the quarks try to pull apart, the tighter the band snaps back. This tension creates a storm of energy. The frantic pulling, the snapping back, and the near light speed velocity of the quarks creates a field of binding energy that is incredibly dense. And because energy has mass, this trapped storm becomes heavy. Imagine a box with mirrors on the inside. If the box is empty, it weighs very little. But if you were to trap a beam of light inside that box, letting it bounce back and forth forever, the energy of that trapped light would add a tiny, imperceptible amount of weight to the box. You are that box. You are trillions upon trillions of boxes, all holding a frantic, eternal dance of energy. It pulls on the tension of the gluon field. It pulls on the motion. When you feel the mattress supporting you, you are feeling the universe interacting with the trapped light inside your atoms. You are not made of solid things. You are made of a song, a vibration so fast and so intense that it simulates the feeling of solidity. You are 99% energy, suspended in a lattice of silence. You are trapped motion, hovering in the void, simulating a solid object for a brief moment in time. And if that motion were to stop, if the dance were to cease, your mass would simply evaporate, leaving only a ghost of particles behind. But the dance does not stop. It continues, silent and perfect, keeping you anchored to the earth while you drift into dreams. And yet, if we look even closer at this energy, at the space where this dance occurs, we find that the void itself is not empty. Strategy block, audience phrases used, data point, cosmic cage, comforting darkness, sleepy science, viral hooks, the touch paradox, domestic anchoring, magnets bed discussion script. To understand this breathing void, we must first look at the sensation that seems most real to you at this very moment. The feeling of weight. You feel the pressure of your body against the mattress, the texture of the sheets against your skin, and the solidity of the pillow beneath your head. It feels absolute. It feels like a collision of matter against matter, a definitive boundary where you end and the world begins. but this sensation is perhaps the most convincing illusion the universe has ever crafted. If we were to zoom in on the point of contact between your skin and the fabric of the bed, descending past the ridges of your fingerprints and into the molecular landscape, we would see a very different reality. We would see that there is no contact at all. You are not touching the bed. You are hovering above it. This phenomenon is governed by the architecture of the atom itself, specifically the behavior of the electrons that swarm the outer shells of every atom in your body. We know that these electrons carry a negative charge, and we know, from the simple magnets we played with as children, that like charges repel one another. If you try to force the north poles of two strong magnets together, you feel a resistance, a cushion of invisible energy that refuses to let them meet. The harder you push, the stronger the resistance becomes, but they never truly touch. This is exactly what is happening between you and the world. The electrons in the atoms of your skin are negatively charged, and the electrons in the atoms of the sheets are also negatively charged. As gravity pulls you down, trying to merge these two surfaces, the electromagnetic force intervenes. It creates a powerful, invisible shield of repulsion that suspends you a tiny fraction of a nanometer above the surface. In the language of physics, this is known as electrostatic repulsion, supported by a fundamental rule of the universe called the Pauli exclusion principle. This principle acts as the cosmic traffic controller, dictating that no two fermions particles like electrons can occupy the same quantum state in the same space at the same time. It is a law of absolute prohibition. The atoms of the bed simply refuse to allow your atoms to encroach upon their territory, and so you float. In every moment of your life, whether you are standing on the floor, sitting in a chair, or lying in bed, you are technically levitating. You are held in a gentle electromagnetic suspension, never truly touching the rough edges of the world. The universe has provided you with a permanent invisible cushion, a force field, that wraps around your entire form, protecting your delicate atomic structure. You may wonder, then what is the sensation of touch? If we are floating, why does the bed feel hard? Why does the blanket feel soft? This is where the architecture of physics meets the architecture of the brain. What you perceive as touch is not the collision of matter, but the interaction of fields. When gravity pulls you down, the electron clouds of the mattress push back against the electron clouds of your skin. This repulsion sends a signal up your nerves to your brain. Your brain interprets this resistance, this electromagnetic pushback, as solidity. It translates the strength of the repulsion into the sensation of hardness or softness. It is a beautiful deception. Your nerves are simply measuring how hard the universe is pushing you away. This realization shifts our perspective on what it means to exist in a physical space. We often feel heavy, burdened by gravity and the density of the world. But in reality, we are creatures of suspension. We are always held up. We are always supported. The electromagnetic force is vastly stronger than gravity, billions of times stronger, which is why the entire mass of the Earth pulling you down cannot overcome the tiny repulsive force of the electrons in the top layer of your mattress. You are resting on a lattice of light and energy. The silence between your atoms and the atoms of the room is small, but it is infinite in its importance. It ensures that you remain distinct. It ensures that you do not merge with the objects around you. It keeps the boundaries of you intact. So as you lie there, feeling the comfort of the bed, remember that you are experiencing the strength of the atomic world. You are being cradled by forces that have existed since the first moments of cosmic history. You are surfing on a sea of electrons, safe in your own personal force field, drifting in the quiet space that separates matter from matter. Strategy block. Audience phrases used: the void, data point, primitive eyes, absorb and hope. Viral hooks, cosmic vertigo, the stadium metaphor, intellectual validation, production script. If we were to peel back that electromagnetic skin, dissolving the force field that gives the world its texture, we would find ourselves standing on the precipice of a vast and silent interior. For centuries, humanity believed that matter was solid, packed tight like stones in a wall or marbles in a jar. It was a comforting thought that the things we hold are substantial, filled to the brim with existence. But in the early 20th century, a physicist named Ernest Rutherford uncovered a truth that shattered this intuition, revealing that our perception of solidity is merely a trick of the light. He discovered that if you fire particles at a thin sheet of gold, they do not bounce off a solid wall. Instead, almost all of them pass straight through, as if the gold were not there at all. It was the first indication that the atom is not a solid ball, but a cathedral of empty space. To truly understand the scale of this emptiness, we must leave the abstract world of equations and step into a physical space that we can understand. Imagine expanding a single atom from the tip of your finger until it is the size of a large professional football stadium. You are standing in the highest row of the bleachers, looking down at the field below. The lights are off, the crowd is gone. It is just you and the vast echoing structure. In this model, the nucleus of the atom, the part that contains almost all of the mass, the protons and the neutrons, sits alone on the 50-yard line, but it is not a massive crate or a large vehicle. At this scale, the nucleus is no larger than a single glass marble. It sits there in the dark, a tiny dense point of matter in the center of a cavernous arena. Now you might wonder where the electrons are. If the nucleus is the marble on the field, the electrons are not rushing around the grass. They are tiny specks of dust, smaller than gnats, buzzing silently way up in the highest seats where you are standing. Between that marble in the center and the gnats in the bleachers, there is nothing. No air, no structure, no support beams, just a vast, yawning void. If you were to walk down the steps, cross the sidelines, and walk all the way to that marble in the center, you would be walking through absolute emptiness. This is the architecture of your own body. It is a strange realization to accept as you drift into sleep. The hand you are resting on the mattress is in reality a collection of these stadiums. Billions upon billions of them, all stitched together, and every single one of them is 99.9999% empty space. If we were to remove this space, if we were to squeeze the empty stadiums out of every human being on Earth and pack only the nuclei together, the entire human race, all 8 billion of us, would fit inside the volume of a single sugar cube. We are, in essence, ghosts with mass. We are data points of energy scattered across a canvas of silence. It helps physicists understand why neutrinos can pass through the entire Earth without hitting a single atom. To them, the planet is just a cloud, a fog that offers no resistance. And yet, the stadium does not collapse. The roof does not fall in. The question that keeps you suspended above the bed, and the question that prevents your hand from passing through the sheets. If the space between the marble and the bleachers is empty of matter, surely it must be filled with something else. As we look closer at that dark space, we realize it is not a vacuum of nothingness, but a storm of probability. Strategy block, audience phrases used: brain melting, the void, forbidden physics, quiet chaos, primitive eyes, viral hooks, the school lie, Bohr model debunking, visualizing the invisible, production script. To understand this storm, we must first unlearn the image of the atom that most of us carry in our minds. In school, we are often shown a diagram that looks like a miniature solar system, where the nucleus is the sun and the electrons are tiny, hard planets tracing neat circular paths around the center. It is a comforting image because it is familiar, mirroring the gravity of the stars above us. But the universe at this scale does not follow the rules of gravity, and if you were to look at a real atom, you would not see planets, you would see something far more ghost-like. The electron is not a solid ball of matter that exists in one specific place at one specific time. It is a wave, a ripple in the quantum field, that spreads out like the sound of a bell ringing in a quiet room. Just as a sound wave fills the entire room at once, the electron fills the empty space of the atom simultaneously. It is everywhere and nowhere, a phenomenon that physicists call a superposition, a concept that feels brain-melting to our primitive eyes, which are evolved to track solid objects, like stones and predators. Instead of a planet tracing a line, imagine a mist that exists everywhere at once, a fog of energy that thickens and thins, creating a shell that is both there and not there. If you were to take a long exposure photograph of a ceiling fan spinning at high speed, the individual blades would disappear, replaced by a translucent, shimmering disk. The electron is like that blurring blade, moving so fast and existing in so many potential states that it becomes a solid shell of probability. This is why the empty space inside you does not feel empty. The stadium is not filled with air. it is filled with this frantic, vibrating cloud. The electrons are smearing themselves out, creating a three-dimensional shape that acts as a barrier to the outside world. When you press your hand against a table, you are not touching matter. You are encountering the outer edge of this probability cloud, a region where the math says an electron might be, but also where it forbids anything else from entering. As we drift deeper into this concept, the shapes become even stranger. In the simplest atoms, like hydrogen, this cloud forms a perfect sphere, a bubble of energy shielding the nucleus. But as atoms grow heavier and more complex, the clouds take on the geometry of blooming flowers. They form dumbbells, rings, and clover leaves, interlocking with one another in a silent geometric dance that defines the chemistry of the universe. These shapes, known as orbitals, are the architecture of reality. They determine why water feels wet, why diamond is hard, and why the oxygen in your lungs can bind to your blood. It is a quiet chaos. The electrons are trapped in these shapes, vibrating with a specific energy, never stopping, never resting. They are bound to the nucleus not by gravity, but by the electromagnetic force, a tether that allows them to roam the vast distances of the atomic void without ever truly leaving home. It is a lattice of rules that keeps the mist in place, ensuring that the emptiness inside you maintains its form. We are made of this mist. The solidity of your body is an illusion created by the speed of these waves. You are a collection of trillions of probability clouds, hovering close together, interacting, merging, and repelling. The walls of your room, the screen of your device, and the skin of your hand are all made of the same ghostly substance, a fog that has convinced itself it is solid. This mist gives us shape, but it does not give us weight. For that, we must go deeper. Strategy block, audience phrases used: frozen light, cosmic cage, quiet chaos, data point, viral hooks. The weight is an illusion paradox, domestic anchoring, the sensation of gravity in bed, production script. Chapter 4. The weight of light. We tend to believe that weight is a fundamental property of matter, assuming that to be heavy is to be filled with solid material. But this intuitive feeling, the sensation of gravity pulling you down into the mattress, is perhaps the greatest deception of all. If we were to dismantle the architecture of your atoms and weigh the actual particles that compose you, the quarks inside the protons and neutrons, we would find a baffling discrepancy. The solid particles that make up your body account for less than 1% of your total mass. This leads us to a question that feels almost like a riddle. If the particles are feather light, what is it that weighs so much? The answer lies in the frantic, eternal motion trapped within the nucleus. You are not made of solid clay. You are made of trapped energy. Inside every proton in your body, 3 quarks are engaged in a movement so violent and so fast that it approaches the speed of light. They are held together by the strong nuclear force, mediated by particles called gluons. These gluons act like elastic bands, stretching and snapping back, creating a tension field of immense power. It is here, in this invisible web of tension, that your mass is born. According to the laws of relativity, energy and mass are interchangeable. Because the quarks are moving at such relativistic speeds, and because the energy binding them is so intense that energy manifests itself to the outside world as mass. It is a phenomenon known as binding energy. You are, in essence, a box of mirrors with light bouncing inside it so furiously that the box becomes heavy to lift. The heaviness you feel in your limbs right now is not the weight of particles. It is the weight of kinetic energy that has been caged for billions of years. This realization shifts our perspective of what it means to be a physical object. You are a localized storm of energy, a region of space where the vacuum is vibrating with such intensity that it simulates the properties of a solid object. The gravity that holds you to the earth is not pulling on stuff. It is pulling on the energy of the interaction, the quiet chaos of the gluon field that refuses to let the quarks fly apart. So as you rest here, you are not a static object. You are a vessel of frozen light, a collection of forces that have achieved a perfect, stable balance. The silence of your body is merely the result of a storm that is contained so perfectly that it feels like peace. And just as the atom is defined by the energy within it, it is also defined by the vastness that surrounds this tiny, energetic core. For even this storm exists within a vacuum. Strategy block, audience phrases used: data point, boiling water, cosmic cage, forbidden physics, Stardust, viral hooks, the illusion of solidity, the taffy universe. Production script. When you allow your body to sink fully into the mattress, you feel a sensation we call weight. It is a feeling of heaviness, a comforting pressure that anchors you to the earth, suggesting that you are made of something substantial, something solid and dense like clay or stone. But this sensation is perhaps the most convincing illusion in the universe. If we were to look strictly at the data points of your existence, we would find that the particles making up your body, the quarks inside the protons and neutrons, are almost weightless. In fact, if you were to sum up the mass of all the actual matter inside you, it would account for less than 1% of your total weight. The rest of you, the heavy part that presses against the sheets, is not made of stuff at all. It is made of trapped motion. This brings us to one of the most beautiful concepts in sleepy science, a principle known as mass-energy equivalence. We often hear the equation E equals mc squared, usually in the context of vast explosions or the boiling water technologies of nuclear power plants. But the equation works in reverse as well. It tells us that energy itself has mass, and inside the cathedral of your atoms, there is a frantic, eternal dance of energy that is so fast and so contained that it simulates the feeling of a solid object. Deep inside the nucleus, the quarks that make up your protons are moving at speeds close to the speed of light. They are held together by the strong nuclear force carried by particles called gluons. You might imagine these gluons not as hard connectors, but as a field of invisible quantum taffy. As the quarks try to pull away from each other, this gluon field stretches, creating an immense amount of tension. Just as a stretched rubber band holds more energy than a relaxed one, this tension creates a reservoir of potential energy, so vast that it registers to the outside world as mass. So when you feel the gravity of Earth pulling on you, it is not pulling on solid matter. It is interacting with the binding energy that holds your reality together. You are not a static sculpture. You are a collection of cosmic cages, each one holding a storm of kinetic energy that has been raging since the first few minutes of the universe. The heaviness you feel in your limbs tonight is simply the resistance of this energy, a physical memory of the motion that created you. It is a strange and comforting thought to realize that you are made of light and motion, frozen in a stable loop. The quarks are zooming, the gluons are stretching, and the field is vibrating, yet the result is you lying perfectly still. It is a reminder that what we perceive as silence is often just a perfect balance of immense forces. The universe has taken the chaotic energy of the Big Bang and folded it into the quiet architecture of your body, locking it away in these tiny, stable pockets so that you can exist as a coherent being. We are, in a very literal sense, stardust that has forgotten it is burning. We are light that has been slowed down enough to have a shape, to have a name, and to rest. And this interaction, this conversion of pure speed into the feeling of weight, is what allows us to touch the world. Without this binding energy, without this forbidden physics operating in the dark heart of the atom, we would simply disperse like a mist, drifting apart into the void. But the field holds, the tension remains constant, and so you remain whole. But if our weight comes from motion, and our shape comes from the probability clouds of electrons, we are left with a lingering question about the stage upon which this dance is performed. We have spoken of the particles and the forces, the dancers and the music. But what of the dance floor itself? If we strip away the energy and the motion, what remains in the spaces between? We call it the vacuum. We call it empty space. But as we drift deeper into the subatomic world, we find that the emptiness is not empty at all. Strategy block, audience phrases used: the void, quiet chaos, boiling water, comforting darkness, deep time, viral hooks, intellectual validation, quantum vacuum, domestic anchoring, sparkling water, production script. To the human eye, the space between the electron and the nucleus appears to be a desert of nothingness. We call it the vacuum. We call it the void. But these words are failures of language, primitive labels we placed on the unknown before we understood the texture of reality. If we were to look at this space with eyes capable of seeing the fundamental structure of the universe, we would not see a barren wasteland. We would see a storm. The empty space inside you is actually a boiling ocean of virtual particles, popping in and out of existence in spans of time too short to measure, yet long enough to define the fabric of the universe. It is a frothing sea where matter and antimatter emerge from the silence, borrow energy from the field, and then collide to vanish back into the deep. This is not the violent chaos of an explosion, but the rhythmic effervescence of a living thing. You may notice that when you look at a glass of sparkling water, the bubbles seem to appear from nowhere, rising to the surface before popping. The quantum vacuum operates on a similar principle, but on a scale so small it defies imagination. The emptiness is not empty, it is full of potential. It is a canvas that is constantly painting itself and then scrubbing the image clean billions of times every second. This concept helps astronomers understand why the universe has weight even where there is no matter. The vacuum itself has a density, a thickness created by this frantic eternal dance. We tend to think of ourselves as solid objects moving through empty space, like a ship moving through air. But the reality is closer to a submarine moving through water. The water is heavy. It presses in on all sides. The space inside your atoms is identical to the space outside them. It is all part of the same continuous shimmering field. It is ironic in a way. We spend our lives burning coal to boil water, trying to extract energy from the crude breaking of chemical bonds, while the empty space inside the furnace holds more energy in its silence. This is the quiet chaos that sustains us. You are not 99.999% nothing. You are 99.999% activity. Imagine walking through a dark forest at night. At first, it seems completely black, a void of visual information. But as your eyes adjust, you begin to see the fireflies. They blink on and off, thousands of them creating a lattice of light that is there one moment and gone the next. The forest is never truly dark. It is alive with transient light. This is the interior of your own body. You are a cathedral of these tiny fleeting sparks, a structure built not of bricks, but of the comforting darkness that breathes. And this breath does not stop at your skin. The field that bubbles inside you is continuous with the field that stretches to the edge of the observable universe. There is no barrier where the quantum foam of your hand ends and the quantum foam of the air begins. It is one seamless, undulating ocean. We are simply patterns in the foam, temporary stabilizations in a field that has existed for deep time and will continue to bubble long after the stars have gone out. This realization shifts our perspective. We are not isolated islands of matter separated by distances of nothing. We are connected by the very emptiness that keeps us apart. The silence between the stars is the same silence that sits between your thoughts. And if we look closely at that universal silence, we see that it mirrors the structure of life itself. Strategy block, audience phrases used, the void, data point, deep time, as above, so below, drift, viral hooks, cosmic vertigo, the scale of the web, intellectual validation, Vaza and Filetti study, production script. If we were to pull our perspective back, retreating from the atomic dance inside your hand and floating upwards, past the roof of your room, past the atmospheric layers of the earth, and even beyond the spiral arms of the Milky Way, we would eventually encounter a structure of immense and silent beauty. Astronomers call this the cosmic web, a vast, three-dimensional tapestry where galaxies are not scattered randomly like dust, but are instead strung together along invisible filaments of dark matter, creating a glowing lattice that stretches across the observable universe. You may notice that this structure looks familiar, evoking a sense of recognition that feels almost instinctive, as if the pattern of the largest thing in existence is already written somewhere within your own memory. These filaments, which span hundreds of millions of light years, act as the highways of the cosmos, guiding gas and gravity into dense nodes where thousands of galaxies cluster together like bright cities in a dark night. Between these filaments lie the great voids, colossal regions of empty space where almost nothing exists, vast spherical bubbles of silence that make up the majority of the universe's volume. It is here, in this grand architecture, that we find one of the most comforting paradoxes in physics. In 2020, an astrophysicist named Franco Vaza and a neuroscientist named Alberto Filetti compared the network of the cosmic web to the network of the human brain, and what they found was a statistical similarity, so precise it borders on the poetic. The complex network of neurons inside your skull, the very machinery that is currently processing these words and allowing you to visualize these stars, is organized in almost the exact same way as the universe itself. Just as the galaxies are clustered into nodes connected by long filaments of gas, your neurons are clustered into nodes connected by long axons and dendrites. And just as the universe is dominated by the empty voids between the galaxies, your brain is dominated by water and fluid, a quiet medium that fills the space between the sparks of thought. The ratio of mass to empty space in the universe is strikingly similar to the ratio of cell to fluid in your own head. This is a reminder that the emptiness we spoke of earlier, the vast distances between the electrons in your hand, is not a flaw in the design. It is the fundamental blueprint of reality, a pattern that repeats itself from the microscopic, adhering to a rule that alchemists once whispered, as above, so below. You are not merely an observer looking up at a distant and alien cosmos. You are a mirror of it, carrying the same geometry of light and silence inside your own chest. When you look at a simulation of the universe, with its purple tendrils of dark matter and its golden clusters of galaxies, you are essentially looking at a map of your own mind. The silence between your atoms is the same silence that sits between the stars, and the energy that binds your cells is the same gravity that holds the superclusters in their drift through deep time. There is no separation. There is only the scale. This realization transforms the concept of emptiness from something lonely into something necessary. Without the voids, the cosmic web would collapse into a singular unformed density, a place where structure and life could not exist. Without the space between your neurons, there would be no room for the signal to travel, no pause to give meaning to the pulse. The void is not nothing. It is the canvas upon which the painting of existence is stretched. And in this vastness, there is finally room to breathe. The hollow spaces inside your atoms are not empty. They are open. They are the windows that allow the universe to flow through you, rendering you transparent to the cosmos, a vessel of organized space that is solid enough to feel the bed beneath you, yet open enough to be part of the infinite field. You are a cathedral of silence, built from the same bricks as the night sky, standing quiet and vast in the dark. Stredici block, audience phrases used: stardust, the void, drift, sleepy science, primitive eyes, viral hooks, cosmic vertigo, trillions of particles, domestic anchoring, window glass, production script. Because you are built of this vast architectural silence, you are not the solid barrier you perceive yourself to be. To the human eye, skin looks like a wall, a boundary that separates the internal self from the external world. But to the universe, you are as transparent as a pane of glass, a mist that allows the cosmos to flow right through, leaving no trace, offering no resistance. This is not a metaphor. At this very moment, while you rest, you are being bathed in a silent, invisible rain. They are called neutrinos, the ghost particles of the cosmos, born in the nuclear fires of the sun and the violent collapse of distant stars. They are traveling at nearly the speed of light, rushing through the void of space to reach Earth. And when they arrive, they do not stop. If you were truly solid, if the atoms that make up your body were dense, impenetrable spheres, these particles would collide with you. You would be a shield. But you are not a shield. You are a sieve. In the time it takes you to take a single breath, trillions of these tiny messengers pass through your eyelids, through your brain, and through the sheets of your bed. They pass through the empty space inside your atoms, as if you were not there at all. It is a humbling thought, a piece of sleepy science that reminds us of our true nature. To a neutrino, the Earth itself is not an obstacle. If it is night where you are, and the sun is on the other side of the planet, these particles have just traveled through thousands of miles of rock, magma, and iron core, passing through the entire globe as easily as light passes through clear water, just to drift through you from below. They rise through the floor, glide through your sleeping form, and continue outward into the deep, returning to the void without ever slowing down. We spend so much of our lives feeling heavy, anchored by gravity and the weight of our own biology. We feel the pressure of the atmosphere and the solidity of the ground. Yet this is a trick of our primitive eyes. In reality, we are open windows. The universe does not stop at your skin. It flows through you, constantly integrating you into the greater field. You are a vessel of organized space, a net so wide that the stardust of the cosmos slips through the mesh, leaving only the sensation of existence behind. There is a profound peace in this transparency. It means that you do not have to hold up the weight of the world, because the world is quite capable of passing right through you. You are not a dam holding back the river. You are the water itself, momentarily taking shape before drifting back into the current. The trillions of ghosts that visit you every second are not intruders. They are reminders that you are connected to the nuclear heart of the sun and the cold depths of the galactic center, linked by a stream of energy that encounters no walls, no borders, and no ends. So as you lie here, feel the walls of your own definition begin to soften. You are not a closed box. You are a porous, drifting cloud of energy, resting in a universe that knows no boundaries. And in that openness, there is room for everything to be, and for everything to let go. Strategy block. Audience phrases used: the void, drift, deep time, eternal silence, absorb and hope, viral hooks, cosmic vertigo, the lag of reality, the cosmic cage, speed of light as safety, production script. Because you are mostly empty space, you are also a creature of distance. We tend to think of our bodies as instant machines, where the thought and the action happen simultaneously, fused together in a single solid moment of now. But in the deep physics of the void, there is no such thing as instant. Even inside the microscopic cathedral of the atom, there is a vastness that must be crossed, a gap that separates the center from the edge, creating a necessary delay in the very fabric of your existence. This delay exists because the forces that hold you together, the electromagnetic whispers exchanged between the nucleus and the cloud, must travel across that empty space. They are bound by the cosmic speed limit of light, meaning they cannot be everywhere at once. It is a strange and comforting thought to realize that the electron does not know where the nucleus is in this exact moment. It only knows where it was a fraction of a nanosecond ago. The message must cross the silence. The conversation between your particles is always a memory of the immediate past, a signal sent across a quiet valley that takes time to arrive. This means that you are living in a state of suspended grace. Because of the space inside you, everything happens with a delay, a tiny imperceptible pause that acts as a cushion against the chaos of the universe. You are not crashing into the present moment, you are drifting into it. The sensation of the bed against your back, the cool air in the room, and the beat of your own heart are all events that have traveled across a distance to reach you. By the time you feel them, they have already settled. In this way, the empty space provides a buffer. It ensures that reality does not happen all at once, overwhelming the system with infinite data. Instead, the universe unspools slowly, obeying the speed limit of the void, allowing each interaction to ripple softly through the lattice of your body, like a wave moving through deep water. It creates a rhythm of waiting. The atom waits for the force. The electron waits for the photon. The body waits for the signal. There is no rush in this system. The emptiness demands patience. It turns the frantic motion of the quantum world into a smooth, continuous flow, just as the distance between stars turns their violent burning into a static, peaceful light in our night sky. Distance creates calm, and since you are made of this distance, you are also made of this calm. You may notice that this internal vastness mirrors the external night. Just as the light from a distant galaxy takes billions of years to reach our eyes, the signals inside your hand take their own time to traverse the atomic void. You are an echo chamber of these silent forces. In that space, there is no urgency. There is no pressure to be anywhere else, because even the light itself must take its time to travel through you. There is only the quiet waiting of the atom, resting in the lag, floating in the peaceful delay between the cause and the effect. Strategy block. Audience phrases used: the void, comforting darkness, eternal silence, deep time, drift, viral hooks, internal cosmic scale, the time lag paradox, living in the past of one's own body, production script. This delay creates a peculiar kind of solitude within the architecture of your own existence. We tend to think of ourselves as instant creatures, inhabiting a single sharp moment of now, but because you are made mostly of empty space, and because the distances between the particles that compose you are so vast relative to their size, there is no true instant. There is only the drift. If we were to stand in the center of that atomic cathedral, looking out toward the distant hazy shell where the energy of the electron resides, we would realize that influence must travel across a great silent sea. Just as the light from a distant star takes ages to cross the galaxy to reach our eyes, the forces that hold your body together must traverse the emptiness inside you. They travel at the speed of light, yes, but in a landscape this large, even light takes its time. This means that you are, in a very literal sense, an event that is spread out across time. The signal from the nerve in your fingertip, resting against the soft fabric of the sheets, must cross the void between atoms, hopping from one island of energy to the next, bridging the gaps of the internal vacuum before it ever registers as a sensation. You are living in a gentle, perpetual lag. The universe inside you operates with a built-in cushion, a tiny, imperceptible pause between the world and your experience of it. It is a comforting thought. It suggests that nothing can touch you instantly. The harshness of reality is filtered through this vast internal distance, softened by the journey it must take to reach the core of who you are. In this way, the empty space acts as a buffer. It is a layer of insulation, not made of cotton or wool, but made of silence. When you lie still, you are allowing this internal distance to settle. You are letting the echoes of the day traverse the final miles of their journey until they fade into the background radiation of your own being. Consider the speed of this stillness. We often equate speed with noise, with the rush of wind or the roar of an engine. But in the deep vacuum, speed is silent. The forces that bind you are moving faster than anything human technology can replicate. Yet they generate no sound, no vibration, no friction. They simply flow. They stream across the gaps like a river moving through a canyon so deep that the water appears motionless from the rim. You are held together by this silent velocity. And because there is so much room inside you, there is no crowding. The particles are not jostling for position. They are not fighting for space. They are suspended in a perfect open equilibrium, separated by oceans of comforting darkness. They have all the room in the world to simply be. This is why the feeling of heavy relaxation is so profound. It is not just the muscles loosening. It is the mind aligning with the reality of its own construction. You are acknowledging the void. You are accepting that you are not a solid block of matter, fighting against gravity, but a cloud of energy floating in a much larger field. The heaviness you feel is just the energy of that field interacting with the energy of the earth, a silent conversation between two vast, empty structures. As you drift deeper into this realization, the concept of rushing begins to lose its meaning. How can you rush through a space that is mostly void? How can you hurry when the very light that defines your shape is taking its own graceful time to travel across the darkness? In that space, there is no rush. There is only the quiet waiting of the atom. It waits without expectation. It hovers in the great expanse, holding its position not through effort, but through the simple, elegant laws of the void. It is a state of permanent suspension, a levitation that requires no energy to maintain. You are, at your most fundamental level, already resting. You are already floating. The conscious mind is simply the last part of you to join this ancient atomic slumber. And as we let go of the need to be solid, we find that the emptiness is not a lack of something. It is a presence. It is a quiet, expansive capacity that allows us to exist without resistance. To be empty is to be open. To be open is to be at peace.